Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Pilgrimage. One thing we're doing on this channel is trying to highlight some of the normative experiences of pilgrimage. We have a bit of an emphasis on Holy Land pilgrimage since I live in Jerusalem. And the intent is never to prescribe or say exactly how your experience is going to be. But if we identify some dynamics, then when you encounter them, then you know it's a normative part of the experience. You'll be prepared for it, and you can react in ways that will still enhance and take advantage of your time, both on the journey and afterwards. And what I'd like to talk to you today is just about the simple issue of fatigue. Holy Land pilgrimage begins and ends with fatigue. It begins with fatigue because most people coming are international travelers that have a long journey, are dealing with jet lag, dealing with a full sense of disorientation, of new cultures, new languages, new currencies, new rhythms, a whole different way of life, let alone being in the Israeli Palestinian conflict, and there can just be some immediate fatigue. Now that fatigue may not fully go away, but after a couple days we get our bearing, we hit our stride. At Holy Land pilgrimage, we do talk about this on the ground a lot. It is so packed. Going from site to site to site, there is an adage that people come to run in the places where Jesus walked. I don't feel that necessarily needs to be the case. What I've also learned from leading pilgrimages and observing others, that even those pilgrimage groups that very intentionally slow down and give their pilgrims a lot of time at sites, a lot of free time, a time of prayer and reflection, by the end, after several days, they too are talking about fatigue and exhaustion. Fatigue comes from many different sources. If you're here in the summer, it is hot. There's a sense of physical strain. It's very hilly. But a lot of fatigue is very mental, kind of the cognitive dissonance that things on the ground are different than we expected, having to relearn things, rethink things, and also some of the tension that just happens. When you face fatigue in the Holy Land, one, take care of yourself. Get sleep when you can get sleep, and as it's often told, accidents often happen towards the end of an experience, towards the end of a journey, and so be that much more cautious in terms of where you're stepping, in terms of asking for assistance from people, just taking your time. Another tip I would give when you're facing fatigue, and it really is just to kind of continue as you are, but it's a matter of trying to absorb content, and so this has to do with just keeping your eyes open, your ears open, continuing to commit to journaling, writing thoughts down. Take your photos, take your videos. You don't have to interpret or process everything on the ground. In fact, you can't. You only process and really work through the experience once you're back home. So fatigue is not so much an obstacle to immediate connections or immediate interpretation that will take place at home, but just keep on thinking in terms of how can I absorb, how can I sense, how can I see. And one of the best ways is keep in conversation with your fellow pilgrims. Keep talking, keep processing, keep asking people questions about what they thought about a certain site or a certain conversation, and write that down. One of my favorite pilgrim writers is Mark Twain, who was here in 1867, and he beautifully captures the pilgrim experience in terms of his sojourn in Jerusalem over a few days. At the beginning of his journals, and it's all published in the book, The Innocents Abroad, he has long, lengthy descriptions of the sites that he visits, but later on, 2 or 3 days later, he literally just starts listing places he went, and you could see and sense the fatigue, which he actually specifically talks about. And let me quote a paragraph from Innocents Abroad, Mark Twain, 1867. He says, "The sights are too many. They swarm around you at every step. No single foot of ground in Jerusalem seems to be without a stirring, an important history of its own. I do not think that such things could be so crowded together as to diminish their interest. We have been drifting about for several days, using our eyes and our ears more from a sense of duty than any higher and worthier reason. And then he continues, and I think this is just such a wisdom for pilgrims. He says, after all, we do not think in the holy place. We think in bed afterwards, when the glare and the noise and the confusion are gone, and in fancy we revisit alone the solemn monuments of the past and summon the phantom pageants of an age that has passed away. Mark Twain dips into some very secular language and concepts there, but what he's talking about is how these spiritual moments and even that sense of spiritual transformation are things that we think through back at home, back in our bed, where even then we hear a new calling, not necessarily to pilgrimage, but a new calling of recommitment of our relationship to God and to others as we continue to develop ourselves in the likeness of Christ. That's us talking pilgrimage here in Jerusalem. See you next time.